the CentreSteer podcast, a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners.
Welcome to the CentreSteer podcast number 148 for July of 2025. CentreSteer is a monthly podcast for Land Rover enthusiasts, hobbyists, and owners around the world. I'm John Costage. Joining me are fellow owners and enthusiasts, Harold, Morgan, and Dixon. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Great to be here.
Hey, always good to be here.
And hopefully we have dealt with a little bit of your delay issues, Morgan. I know as we're recording, sometimes Harold and I are in the future.
I think without offending anybody, you two are in the future from my perspective anyway. But I do think we've resolved the
Vermont is a bit behind the times.
And we are older than him.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. But
Yeah, I was choosing to ignore that.
Exactly.
Substitute my own commentary. And the fact that you're still struggling to put your truck together puts you behind the gun for us, too.
For sure.
10 years, I think the number is.
Yeah, I think so, unfortunately. Yeah.
Our guest this month is Glenn Parent. Glenn returns to the podcast and tells us about the Weenie Roast, Vermont Rover Club, and the British invasion at Stowe, and reminisces about Dave Sweetapple. Dave was a Land Rover enthusiast who passed away in August of 2024. And also, if you hang around, you'll see that Morgan gets an offer to help him with his Rover rebirth.
Yes.
Yeah, anybody else up in Vermont that wants to give Morgan a hand, he could use it.
A Rover Raising, I think it was called.
Exactly.
Thanks to our Patreon and Buy Me a Tea subscribers for their support. You too can support the podcast through Patreon, Buy Me a Tea, or you can support a t-shirt or even a sticker. Patreon supporters receive bonus content, including our 10 questions, which is a Land Rover-oriented question and answer lightning round. I do apologize. It took me longer to get Liza and Jenna's 10 questions posted than I anticipated, but that happens.
Well, there were 2 of them, so it was twice as much work.
Let's go with that. Excellent, Harold. Thank you. And now it's time for the North American events calendar with Dixon.
For the keeners who are downloading this podcast as early as possible because it's on their calendar, they should be listening to this right about now at the Muddy Chef Challenge down in Winhall, Vermont. It runs from July 31st to August 3rd. And if you're not down there, you probably should start thinking about getting there. The Muddy Chef Challenge is an event that's run since 2008 near around Stowe, Vermont. And the whole thing is based on tailgate cooking. Not only do you have to off-road, but you have to go and cook on this thing as part of a competition. In the past, it's also included such things as sport clay shooting, fly fishing, and the rest of it. Information can be found on their website and or on Facebook. The second event is August 15th to 16th. It is the Ohio Land Rover Summer Camp at Southington Off-Road Park in Ohio.
Yeah, is that not the Cuyahoga Valley Land Rover Club?
It seems to be it's run by the Cuyahoga Valley Land Rover Club. Information for it's actually on cvlrc.net, or they actually have a Facebook group too. They bill this as for people with everything from beginners to more advanced.
And having been to Southington, it's a nice park. I'm going to try to go, but I'm coming back from vacation, so we'll see if I can actually go.
The other one, if you're into a much longer drive, which actually Glenn mentioned, is the Maine Misfits and Rover Bits in Green, Maine. That's August 15th to 17th. It's cheap, $20 to go to it. It's more of a swap meet with trails and such there, run by John Valorand. You've got 200 acres of trails, rustic camping, and such there. Tons of series Rover parts and derelict trucks for sale and such.
And I should say, Dixon, that a long drive is relative, that we do have listeners over in Los Angeles.
Yes.
It's no shorter for them.
As long as they're not driving a Freelander, they can make it there.
Fair.
They just have to start a little sooner.
Sir, a North American Freelander 1. Let's be very specific.
There is one, yes, that runs.
There is one that runs. Yes, that's true. That's true.
There's one that did run. I don't know if it still
true.
runs.
And you do know
That is true.
I think we mentioned this before, that it's now able to import a Freelander. We could
Yeah.
import a diesel one from the UK.
But
Yeah,
it would
those
still be a
were-
Freelander.
That was the bee's knees. That was the one to have.
But it's not the NAS.
No, because the NAS was
NAS.
crap.
It's the mightiest.
It's true. My apologies. Yes, thank you for the correction, sir.
The mightiest crap.
And actually, for those that want a third challenge, the Carolina Trail Rovers group down in North Carolina is going to be running the Jefferson National Forest Expedition on the same weekend, 15th to 17th in Jefferson National Forest in Bland, Virginia. Check their Facebook page for further information. Now, after you've done those 3 weekends events, the next one actually is going to be the Ottawa Valley Birthday Party. This is the longest running Land Rover event in the hemisphere. It's been running continuously since 1984. This year, up near Silver Lake in the Lanark Highlands of the Canadian Shield, it has a lot of very interesting off-roading opportunities and so on. There's everything there from swamp to just rock. It's the ancient North American core of the continent, the Canadian Shield. Bring bug spray. But they should be
Yes.
somewhat, the numbers should be reduced somewhat. They won't carry you away by August. They certainly will in May or June.
Can confirm.
And then you have a bit of a break to another double event weekend on September 21st weekend. You have either the choice of British Car Day. This is the largest British car show in North America, single day show, over 1,000 British cars there in the Bronte Creek Provincial Park, just west of Toronto. And if you're not interested in driving to a static car show, there is another one in Stowe, Vermont, the 34th British Invasion, which is another very interesting car show there. I've been to that many times back in the day, though not in probably the last decade or so. And coming more to a conclusion on September 22nd to 27th, the 37th Solihull Society National Rally is going on in Moab, Utah. It's rocked, lots of rocky trails and so on to be going on that. Information for that is on their website or their Facebook feed, or actually, I should be mentioning this with a lot of these, on the anarch.club webpage. There is an event calendar there where a lot of these links are there if you just want to go clicking. And the final one is going to be the Mid-Atlantic Rally. This is another huge rally down at Pearls Pond, Virginia. There will be several hundred vehicles there. They will have everything from RTV to trail rides and everything else. It's worth going to at least one MAR.
And they are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Rove, which is the club that puts on the MAR. And they've expanded the amount and space for camping. And also the podcast will be there.
Yes.
Not exactly sure which of us will be there, but the podcast will be there.
Someone having a CentreSteer sticker on their vehicle will be in presence.
That's right. Making a showing. Flying the flag.
And that wraps up events for August and September.
And early October. Thank you, Dixon.
No problem.
Now it's time for the news. First up, U.S. trade pause, a factor in JLR retail sales fall. So JLR has said its sales have dropped by 15.1% over the 3 months to June, partly because of the threat of U.S. tariffs. It said the drop in sales was partly due to planned wind down of the older Jaguar models. In April, the U.S. government said it would launch an additional 25% tariff on car imports, but later came a deal with the UK and JLR restarted exports in May. JLR said its retail sales were down by 94,420 units over the 3 months to June, and wholesale sales dropped by 10.7% compared with a year earlier. The U.S. said its tariffs on car imports were intended to encourage more car production within the U.S. The deal it reached with the U.K. was to introduce a lower 10% tariff for the first 100,000 UK manufactured car imports into the U.S. each year. UK cars imported to the U.S. beyond the threshold will face a 27.5% tariff. The car firm said the wholesale sales in North America dropped by 12.2% year on year when it paused shipments. However, wholesale sales in the UK saw a bigger fall by a quarter because of the planned cessation of the legacy Jaguar models.
In other words, all Jaguar models.
Yeah.
That's true. Good point.
The few they're still making, basically.
Yes, they're not making them anymore.
Yeah.
But what a turn, huh? From their last fiscal year, they were up billions of dollars. And
This whole business with the tariffs it's a yo-yo. It's first they're up, then they're down, then they're on, then they're off. And it's tough to follow that when you're a manufacturer offshore.
tough to plan.
Yeah, exactly. You can't plan. You have to react and follow. And that's no way to run a business.
And also shipping them across the sea to another continent, shipping across to Europe and Africa and Asia much faster than shipping across like the Atlantic Ocean to the United States.
And next up is JLR to axe 500 UK management jobs as Trump tariffs fallout dents sales. So the previous article we told you about was, I think, mid-July. And then this article came out 3 days later. JLR said it will have to axe up to 500 management jobs in the UK after reporting a plunge in sales. The luxury car maker said about 1.5% of its staff in the UK would be affected by the cuts as part of a voluntary redundancy for managers. JLR, owned by Tata, employs 33,000 people in the UK. The car manufacturer reported a 15.1% drop in sales in the first 3 months. After a temporary pause in exports to the US, JLR stopped shipments to the US in April after Trump imposed a 25% duty on all foreign-made vehicles before resuming them in May. The country accounts for more than a quarter of JLR's sales. And then a spokesman for JLR said JLR regularly offers eligible employees voluntary redundancy programs. Through this limited UK VR program for managers, JLR is aligning its leadership workforce for the business current and future needs. We are grateful to the government for delivering at speed the new UK-US trade deal, which gives us the confidence to invest $35 billion per annum, that's in pounds, to realize our strategy, which is delivering. Finally here, the company reported a 12.2% drop in wholesale sales in North America. Sales in the UK also fell 25.5% in the second quarter after the planned wind down of of the Jaguar models. And the company stopped selling new cars in the UK late last year as part of its shift toward new electric models, which are expected to hit the market in 2026.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And I'm not a math person. I may do electronics, but it's binary, on or off. I'm good with two numbers.
So is my dog.
I'm very curious. Excellent.
He can count to two.
Very nice. I don't understand the tariffs well enough. And obviously, I think nobody really does. But when they say UK manufactured vehicles for that 100,000 initial import at the 10% tariff, does that mean that the the Discovery and the Defender, which are actually manufactured in Slovakia?
It is country of manufacture. They are manufactured in Slovakia. So therefore, they're subject to the European tariffs and they're not subject to the UK-US agreement. As I understand it.
That was my initial read, too. So that means $100,000.
Is Slovakia on the good list or on the Penguin Island list?
It's all non-US countries are on the naughty list.
Non-UK countries are on the naughty list.
UK now has this particular deal, but the 25% tariff imposed was on non-US manufactured vehicles. So that would include Slovakia. And then they're negotiating every individual country. But even that 100,000 initial vehicles that would have the 10% duty, that quarter of sales for JLR was 95,000 vehicles, or 93 or 4. So it's still an impact no matter which way you look at it. It's
still a major impact,
big,
especially as they're trying to move everything up market. But then again, I guess if you can afford a 6-figure Range Rover, probably an additional 10-20%, maybe that doesn't impact you. I don't
know. We did the math one time and it was $37,000 in tax on a Range Rover. It's
money.
It's money.
I guess in this case, it would be Jaguar Land Rover North America or Land Rover North America who would decide who's going to eat the tariffs. So they could be just charging more than the 10% and making a better profit on the first portion of the 100,000. What other marks are still manufacturing in the UK?
I think Rolls-Royce. Are they still? I think they're still.
I believe so. There's minis being made there, and a lot of the boutique brands are still
Morgan.
being made. Yeah.
But I don't think
that's true.
I don't think they're going to be selling 100,000 cars though in a year.
Yeah, Morgan makes far fewer than that.
Still hand built.
Yes. The other part that's interesting, I think from what I understand from these articles, that this is a UK policy thing, but they're offering that 1.5% of the staff that they're laying off, the managers, it's a voluntary reduction.
Yeah. What happens if they don't get enough volunteers? Do they start volunteering people?
I think they get voluntold. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would suspect that's
involuntary volunteering.
Yeah. Is this like a cake or death situation?
Raise your hand if you are exiting the company. If you're not, we'll raise your hand for you.
Exactly.
There's also this notion, especially in the IT world, that because of AI, whatever that means, and it doesn't have at least in my head, it does not have a clear definition for most people. Some of the IT companies seem to be eliminating middle managers because they think the AI will help at that level. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but maybe that's another reason why Land Rover is going down the same path.
I had the same thought. The other part of it for Land Rover is now that they have discontinued the original Defender, they don't have as many workers actually building vehicles in the UK. Most of the UK staff are higher level managers and such for the larger organization, as far as I understand. I don't know what
translation. They're more expensive employees.
That too. It's probably no coincidence that their sales dropped 15% and they decided to lay off 1.5% of their managers.
Well, to be clear, they've not produced classic Defender for almost 10 years now. And they were, even at the time, they were only running one shift of workers. I suspect they were not heavy on staff.
Definitely. But all the vehicles that are produced there are on a very good assembly line. And we've discussed over some of the last few months, some of the production facility improvements that they have completed for further refinement of those processes. So it seems like they don't need as many workers in that area. And probably most of them at this point are in Slovakia anyway.
Many of the workers are just robot minders.
So maybe what you're saying is that it was the convenient time to lay some folks off or make redundant, as the British say, using the tariff issue as cover.
That's entirely possible.
I don't think this is what the term Jerry likes to use. I think there's a difference between that redundancy and reductiveness. But I just think at this point, that's probably the only area they could really lay people off within the UK.
Land Rover confirms return of Freelander in 2026. China first, world later. JLR's announced that it intends to resurrect the Freelander name, including a new range of electric SUVs using the mark. The announcement has been made at JLR's 2025 Investor Day. This was through the president of JLR China. The name comes back as JLR works with Chery, the Chinese car maker, to build a footprint in the world's largest car market. The Freelander is set to return, said the president of JLR China. Under our joint venture with Chery, the new vehicles reflect the ambition to break free from convention with innovative engineering, featuring ADAS features and more smart features as well. The new Freelander will cater to freedom-seeking customers who are young at heart and looking for moments of joy. Initially, it will launch in China, the world's largest EV market, and it holds potential for global expansion. This represents a bold step in a different segment, complementing our existing JLR business and unlocking growth. They also confirmed that the new Freelander will launch on a flexible battery electric architecture, with the first model coming in the second half of 2026. All new models will use a Chery platform and powertrain. It's a full-size SUV echoing the original spirit of the Freelander, brought up to date with a design appealing to the discerning, technologically savvy Chinese consumer. And they also confirmed that the Freelander name, like Defender, Range Rover, and Discovery, will become a family of models.
It will be its own house.
At least in China.
China first, world later.
Well, that's the China motto, China first. So this is being built for the customer, which is seeking joy, but not necessarily old man's joy.
Nice.
Yes.
Well done, Harold. Good callback. Good callback.
Now, I am genuinely curious. Do we have any other Chery manufactured, or do we have any Chery manufactured vehicles that are DOT certified in the US or whatever the equivalent is in Canada?
I do not believe there are any Chinese manufactured vehicles that are available for purchase in the US.
Now with the 112% tariff or whatever it is this week, it would be very overpriced.
Yes.
I've heard that there are, is it Baidu or maybe it's a different company that has these relatively cheap all electric cars that are selling pretty well, but either they've not applied or they've not been approved for sale here. That part I don't know, but I don't believe there's any. I've not heard of any Chinese manufactured vehicles available in North America.
Not on road. There's off-highway stuff that's coming from China and construction equipment, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that, but no on-road vehicles.
Yeah, consumer grade.
Yeah, I think most of the ones I've seen have been of the electric bicycle, electric motorcycle scope.
Electric thing?
Yeah, that as long as they sort of skirt under the laws requiring actual DOT certification.
Airbags, turn signals.
For motorcycles, it's more of a speed and horsepower requirement usually.
Under a certain amount, it's classified as a motorized bicycle and not a motorcycle.
Exactly.
It's the old moped rules.
Yeah. And I have seen some other small SUV-ish things brought in, but mostly people are using them as like farm vehicles or on golf courts or just
like the Japanese K-Class stuff that doesn't get registered but gets used on private property.
All right, next up, we have 2 recalls. JLR North America recalls the Range Rover Evoque over passenger airbag that may tear. It's a safety recall encompassing U.S. market Range Rover Evoque vehicles produced for the 2021 through 2025 model years. In the vehicles, the front passenger airbag may tear during deployment, increasing risk of injury. JLR North America further highlight a torn front passenger airbag may allow hot gases to escape, potentially causing burns. The model in question is produced by a Hungarian arm of Joyson Safety Systems. Joyson Safety Systems, a relatively new automotive supplier with a very interesting background. Until 2018, it was known as Key Safety Systems, controlled by Ningbo Joyson Electronic Corp and PAG. The supplier became Joyson Safety after the 2018 acquisition of Takata, which, as you may recall, has lots of airbag issues. The Recall Determination Committee ultimately decided to recall on June 30th, 2025. Customers and JLR legal team are not aware of any reported injuries resulting from this concern. The recall documentation filed with NHTSA does not explicitly state how the supplier corrected this condition in airbag production, or if the remedy modules come from a different supplier. Owners and lessees will have the suspect airbag modules replaced at no charge. The recall vehicles were produced for model year 2021 through 2025 from July 10th of 2020 through October 7th of 2024. JLR introduced a modified front passenger airbag specification for the 2025 model year. And next is Range Rover Sport investigated for dangerous suspension flaw. NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, has opened an investigation of potential issue with almost 92,000 Range Rover Sport SUVs sold between 2014 and 2017. Road and Track spotted an investigation focusing on possible fracturing of the aluminum steering knuckle. Steering knuckles connect the front and wheel and tire assembly, hub, and brakes to the suspension via a pivoting assembly that allows for steering. Failure of one of these critical pieces may lead to detachment of the upper suspension arm, which under extreme avoidance maneuvers may compromise the vehicle's controllability and increase the risk of a crash. NHTSA has said it received 12 reports of owners stating that one or both aluminum front steering knuckles have fractured at the top of the joint where the Steering knuckle attaches via a pinch bolt and nut to the upper control arm ball joint. The investigation covers a portion of the second generation Range Rover Sport models in the U.S., known internally as the L494. This generation arrived in the 2014 model year and continued until 2022.
I think it's a bad idea to make a steering knuckle out of aluminum. I think that's just asking for trouble. That's a high abuse part of the truck, and they take a pounding by design, and I think I would want forged steel.
Especially, I know that Land Rover and Range Rover now, separate brands, they
separate houses, sir.
Right, separate houses, separate brand houses.
They're separate brands. It is a house of brands.
Except that Land Rover is neither of those, is not a house.
Marco.
It's not actually an entity that still exists. It is now JLR.
I think it's just a badge now. It's just an oval badge that they place discreetly under the vehicle.
Yes.
If you open the glove box, you might see one. I'm sorry. These are coming to my head here. So.
No, I know. It's hard to stop once we get going on this subject.
Puddle lights. They're just puddle lights. That's the only place you see the Land Rover logo anymore.
But yeah, they have standards as to where they will use certain levels of recycled aluminum. And I don't know how they qualify those for suspensions components, but I agree with Harold, especially on their fastest vehicle, which they really market to people to throw through corners, and they have built-in advanced suspension stabilization technologies.
They've not just marketed it for people who want to throw it into the corners. They're out there telling people you can go out in the woods and pound this thing off of rocks and then drive fast on the way home.
You can also drive it up the stair. What was the stone steps in China? Raised it up. Yeah. What happens when you try to drive back down and your steering knuckle fractures?
I think the real concern here is the fact that they should have known this. You've been making aluminum and steel since 1948. Do you think you would already have known this? Someone internally forgot something.
No, I think what it is, they never used to make the suspension stuff out of aluminum. That's a relatively new thing, and some engineer talked them into it. Says, oh yeah, it's lighter and we can reduce unsprung weight, which is a neat thing from a vehicle dynamics standpoint, but I just don't think it's up to the task abuse-wise. And I just don't think they adequately considered the use case of how this stuff gets pounded on.
How does the aviation industry look at aluminum? Because they have very strict standards as to how long aluminum parts can be in use, because aluminum deals with fatigue much differently. It's a much softer metal, so it does fatigue and crack.
Well, not only that, but it work hardens. It's designed to flex. After a few 100,000 times flexing back and forth, the crystalline structure within the metal has changed, and it hardens up and becomes more brittle. Steel does that to a certain extent too, but much, much slower and much less. But in the context of the airframe, they're flexing, and there's a lot of stress on an airframe, but it's never meeting an immovable object as part of its operation, whereas the suspension on a Range Rover most certainly is.
And some of the process to anneal aluminum to restructure it at a molecular level to remove the work hardening, to soften it again, it's very different. And with steel, there's potential for heat to radiate through it in a way to slow or reverse some of those fatiguing processes a little bit. Probably not in this particular situation, but yeah, aluminum's just the kind of thing where it's going to work harden and fatigue and then just fail much more.
Like I said, I just think it's a bad idea for that use.
Agreed. And with these vehicles, they're pushing it to levels that their vehicles have not attained as readily.
All right, next up, Range Rover just changed its logo, but not in the way you think. JLR revealed a new Range Rover emblem with overlapping R's and gold finishes. The logo won't replace the Range Rover script or the traditional Land Rover oval. The brand said the emblem is meant for limited use spaces, not primary branding. So yeah, they've added this double R, a mirror image, one R on top of the other R and a mirror image.
It's kind of a pair of R's doing a 69.
Yes.
Read whatever you want to into that. But the one cool thing about it is if they would put it on something that rotates, like the wheel centers and stuff, it's like always right side up without having to put all that floating center stuff like Rolls-Royce does in their double R logo that's always right side up.
Right. Good point.
And they included something called patterning, which they took the R and made it into a pattern, but it's not the mirror one that they've discussed, but it's this pattern. And this makes me wonder, since it's not going to be primary branding or not going to be primary branding, but secondary or tertiary branding, I guess. Maybe this is going to be used for applications that are not part of the vehicle. Maybe handbags, maybe luggage.
Merch for enthusiasts.
Merch, yeah. Skis, something.
There's one picture that we're looking at. The R's are all arranged square. Really, basically, the R's are representing carbon atoms in a molecule of graphite.
It does look like that, doesn't it?
Good point. That's so true. It could make an interesting embossed stitching pattern on seats. It could also make really nice tire snow chains.
Or tire tread.
But other than that,
if they want to commission their own custom-made tires, one could do that.
Speaking of the Range Rover, next up, Range Rover's first EV looks the part, but with a few surprises. This is from Electric. And we have a series of mentions here of the new Range Rover Electric. So with its first all-electric SUV due out later this year, Range Rover promises it will refine and craft the epitome of the luxury brand. Although Range Rover is currently putting the electric SUV through the most intensive testing any of its vehicles have endured, Autocar got their hands on a prototype for early review. The Range Rover Electric may look like the iconic SUV we've grown to love, but with an electric powertrain, it offers even more. Quote, a Range Rover more calm and assured, almost regardless of circumstances, than any of its 55-year lineage. Electrification yields a lot, but sacrifices little, unquote. Matt Sanders, Autocar's chief car tester, said after driving the prototype. Based on the MLA architecture, the electric SUV features JLR's new in-house powertrain. The dual motor setup packs a combined 542 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque. The EV draws power from a massive 118 kilowatt-hour battery, which is expected to deliver around 300 miles of real-world range. Sanders said he had about 160 miles of range remaining at half charge during the review. However, even JLR's engineers admit that due to the SUV's not so aerodynamic profile, 300 miles may be optimistic during longer range highway driving. The engineers highlighted that the vehicle's 800-volt architecture offers some of the fastest DC charging speeds in the market. The electric SUV can also tow over 7,700 pounds, 2.5 tons. Although this is less than the current Range Rover's 3.5-ton towing capacity, it's still on par with other SUVs like the Mercedes G-Class. To add more power, more motors, and bigger batteries would be required, according to Simon Fairbrother, Range Rover's chief program engineer. Autocar only drove the vehicle at speeds under 20 miles an hour. We'll have to wait to hear more about on- and off-road performance. Sanders did mention that the Range Rover Electric can simply ease itself up, down, over, and around everything before it inspires incredible confidence in its capabilities while driving through forest racks. We will learn the price closer to the launch, but JLR reportedly is aiming for a price around the V8 Autobiography at just under $200,000, 150,000 pounds.
Just under 200,000.
Yes.
It's like at that price, why bother? 200,000. That's the price.
You now got to throw the tariffs on it, Harold.
I know that, but they're throwing us a big bone by getting it just under 200,000. What's the difference going to be? 197?
It's the language that they use to describe it is fascinating to me. It'll be interesting to see how it really performs, and especially what the range is, because the 300 is a pretty good range for a vehicle of its size and weight.
Yeah, but like the article mentions, I don't think you'd get 300 at full highway speed. And by full highway speed, like 75, 80 miles an hour, you're just not going to get that kind of range pushing that much wind with a brick.
Exactly. And especially if you're running like full environmental, like air conditioning and such at the same time. No,
Of
it's
course, you're going to do that because it's a Range Rover. It has that stuff. If you're the person who buys a Range Rover, you like all that comfort.
for sure. And when you crank the heat and turn on the heated seats and the massager and your heated steering, it's going to be really comfortable. But yeah, you're going to probably sacrifice in that area.
And then related to that is why the Range Rover Electric skips the front trunk. In an interview with Australian Magazine Car Expert, the vehicle's chief engineer explained why the Range Rover without a combustion engine, first Range Rover without a combustion engine, won't have a supplementary front cargo area. Land Rover surveyed customers on the matter, and the consensus was that the rear luggage space was sufficient. They confirmed the cargo volume will match that of the combustion engine model, with no need to raise the floor to accommodate the battery pack. However, packing the 344 prismatic cells in a double-stacked layout while maintaining cargo space means the electric Range Rover will be offered exclusively with 2 rows of seats. A 7-seat variant isn't planned due to the packaging constraints. Land Rover will sell a spare tire that will eat into the luggage capacity by sitting above the cargo floor. Customer preferences weren't the only reason why Land Rover skipped the front trunk. Owen rhetorically asked, why would I want to lean against the dirtiest part of the car to put stuff?
Oh, that's somebody who does not drive in this part of the world, because in winter with all that salt spray, what's the dirtiest part of your vehicle? The back, where it gets sucked in by vacuum.
Yep.
Not the front. But it seems to me if they're not going to use the front engine bay, if you will, as a trunk, why not put the batteries up there so you can keep them out of the back, or put the spare tire up there so it doesn't eat into your cargo space?
It sounds like with the, 118 kilowatt.
They've probably
Battery
got
pack, they
batteries
probably
everywhere
already
they can
have-
put it. Yeah. It may not be full though, but I would rather put the spare tire up front and free up some space in the back. And I don't think it would shift that many batteries. Man, I could be wrong about that.
And the other thing I was thinking about is the rear, the cargo area is at a height that is convenient for loading items in and out. Whereas the front on the Range Rover, it seems like the lowest point would have to be relatively high, that you'd be more likely hiking things up and over a little bit more.
Yep.
It's just
Good
wouldn't be
point.
as
Completely
convenient.
agree.
I think works fine in a lot of the electric pickup trucks because they are more utilitarians. So if you got more.
I miss the Bollinger design. It's really too bad they bailed out of that market, because they had a front tailgate and a rear tailgate and a middle tailgate and a rear middle tailgate. You could drop all those and you could run 24-foot sticks of lumber all the way through the truck. That was so cool.
Depending on how, put some flags on the back.
Exactly. And flags on the front too.
Or joust.
Yeah.
There we go. There's its next, the Bollinger Joust. It's a good name.
Maybe that's one of the reasons they canceled it. It would have been too tempting for people to joust with the Bollinger.
And next in our discussion of Range Rover Electric is Range Rover Electric SUV won't launch this year after a surprise delay, but there's more. So Range Rover's first electric EV was initially scheduled to arrive later this year, but that won't be the case. JLR has delayed the launch of the Range Rover Electric after telling customers that they will have to wait a little longer. However, this may not be the only EV JLR is delaying. Though the electric SUV was initially due to hit showrooms in late 2025, it is now being pushed back until next year. The British automaker claimed it needed more time for testing while it waited for stronger demand. However, there's more to the story. According to The Guardian, JLR wrote to clients waiting for the Range Rover Electric, telling them deliveries will not start until 2026. Sources close to the matter say the delay could also impact 2 Jaguar EV models, including the radical blue and pink Type 00 concept. Jaguar's electric vehicles are expected to be delayed by several months. The news comes after JLR announced plans to cut 500 management positions. JLR's sales plunged 15%, as we've already discussed. Company spokesman confirmed that by 2023, JLR will sell electric versions of all its luxury brands, adding, "We will launch our new models at the right time for our clients, our business, and individual markets." Range Rover's first electric SUV has secured over 61,000 customers on the waiting list. JLR claims its currently undergoing the most intensive testing any Range Rover vehicle has ever endured. An electric version of the Velar is due for a radical new look. It's scheduled for production in April 2026, but that could also be delayed. An electric Defender is due out in early 2027. Meanwhile, production of Jaguar's new EV, the first since the I-Pace, is set to begin in August of 2026. The electric Jaguar GT is expected to cost over $135,000, 100,000 pounds, as part of its revamp. And a second EV may not launch until December of 2027 now.
Electric Jaguars are being delayed. In other words, all Jaguars are being delayed.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that I think about this, considering our earlier discussion, I wonder if they need to do some more testing on steering and suspension components on a heavier all-electric Range Rover.
Well played, sir. Played.
In addition to everything else.
Next is Land Rover is dropping the USA's most affordable Defender 90 models. So Land Rover USA website reveals both a two-door Defender and the six-cylinder engine are still available, as is the four-cylinder that once served as the most basic option in the same body style. The smaller engine are just no longer an option for the 90. The more basic engines are now available only in the 110 and the 130, while the 90 is offered only with the throaty 518 horsepower supercharged 5-liter V8. Because of the shift, the cheapest Defender 90 that you can buy has made a remarkable jump in price from under $60,000 to around $115,000. Since the most affordable Defender body style no longer offers the four-cylinder, the starting price for any Defender is now $65,350 for a four-cylinder 110. The larger 130 does not offer the four-cylinder engine, but is still available as both 6 and V8 engines.
The 130 would be pretty miserable with just the four-cylinder, I would think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think they're dropping the smaller engines in the 90 because they don't make enough money on them. And if they're going to be moving fewer cars in this country, they've got to move more expensive ones.
Or maybe just those were not selling at all, possible.
Yeah, and I'm not disappointed that the 90 will be V8 only, because it's going to be a more fun vehicle overall. But having the short wheelbase be more expensive than the long wheelbase is very disappointing for sure.
It's very strange, that's for sure. But again, I would like the turbo diesel, but they're not going to do that.
Not anymore. All right, next, let's talk about the Discovery and the Defender. But before we talk a little bit about the Defender, this is 13 things you should know before buying a Land Rover Discovery, new or used. This is from /gear. We'll go through this. There's some of these points to read, some just to talk about the headlines. But first, they introduced this by saying the Discovery's emphasis on family-friendly hauling capabilities set it apart from other models in the Land Rover range. But like any good Land Rover, it's still impressively capable off-road. It's now one of the brand's older models, but age hasn't diminished its appeal. However, given that it faces such tough competition both from within Land Rover's own lineup and from rival manufacturers, it's worth making sure you're in the loop about Discovery's charms and drawbacks before you head to the dealership. Whether you're looking to buy a new Disco or an older example, we think these 13 things are worth knowing before you buy. Number one, the Discovery, and this is the D5, starts at $62,000 for 2026. The Disco Sport, they're doing the house of brands, I guess, here for this article. The smaller Disco Sport starts at $51,000 for 2026. The 2026 model year will see the launch of multiple special editions. We talked about those last month for the full-size Disco. The mild hybrid Discovery is less efficient than its non-hybrid counterparts. It's often the case that powertrain electrification boasts fuel efficiency, but that's not the case with the Discovery, at least not compared to the model's non-hybrid trims. Top-spec Discovery trims get a 3-liter 6-cylinder MHEV mild hybrid electric vehicle powertrain that achieves 19 miles per gallon. Combined, according to the EPA, in the city, it's only expected to hit 17 miles per gallon, while on the highway it should reach 23. The base spec 4-cylinder engine in the Discovery is actually more fuel efficient than its larger hybrid powertrain, although only slightly. Per the EPA, it achieves 21 combined, 19 in the city, and 24 on the highway.
I put that down to it being 4-cylinder instead, because the mild hybrid's going to have better torque and stuff. But yeah, 4-cylinder is going to be overall more efficient, but it's not going to perform as well.
Next up, the fifth item out of 13. The Discovery was first launched in 1989. From its inception, the Discovery was designed to be a versatile family hauler with what that was less luxurious and thus more affordable than a Range Rover, but more refined on road than a Defender. The first generation of the Discovery was launched in 89. It remained on sale for a decade until the Disco 2 hit dealerships in 1999. Third generation Discovery arrived in time for the 2005 model year in America, but lost its Discovery name, as we're aware. Number 6, the current generation Discovery was launched in 2017 with an optional 3-liter turbo diesel engine offering as economical alternative. Of course, we don't get that anymore.
Of course not.
But if you wanted a...
We never did.
No, we did. It was available here. They did bring that turbocharged diesel here in the U.S.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So
for a year.
Yeah. Yes. So it's available.
Right, exactly.
But you would have
to
buy...
It was so quick, I forgot.
You would have to buy a 2017 Disco 5, I think the first model. Next, the Disco depreciates quickly. Buyers looking for a lightly used Discovery 5 won't need as large a budget as those shopping for a new example, as the model loses its value quickly once it leaves the dealership. According to KBB, the Discovery should retain only 35.9% of its sticker price after the first 5 years on the road. It sees the largest drop in value during the first year, with depreciation trailing off considerably after that. 2-year-old Discovery is worth only a little over half its price when new. Next, older examples of the Discovery are cheap to buy. This is number 8 in the list.
If you can find one that's not rusted out.
Unlike the Defender, which remains sought after a collector's item, classic examples of Discovery don't command a high price tag. The cheapest examples of the first generation can be found for $10,000 or less. Low mileage examples rarely exceed $25,000. The second generation Disco is similarly affordable, with the cheapest examples around $10,000. The LR3 lacks the old school styling, but it's also just as cheap, with average resale sitting around $10,000. The LR4, more expensive on average, but still remains affordable. The Discovery is unreservedly overlooked. Buyers will pay far less than they would for Defender, but they still have a car with similarly impressive off-road capabilities and the ability to transport family and their luggage in comfort. Number 9, reliability varies between models. According to Consumer Reports, the Disco and the Disco Sport are predicted to be less reliable than the average new SUV, with that prediction based on the brand's overall reliability history. So that's the brand, not those specific models. The outlet also ranks Land Rover as the costliest major brand for maintenance and repairs over time, even after Porsche. NHTSA data also highlights a few problem years, with the 03 Discovery racking up the largest number of complaints to date, and the 2015 Disco Sport having the most recalls of any Discovery variant. That's information I did not know.
Yeah, that's why they had to change the name in between there.
That's why it became, yes, the LR3 here in the U.S. Number 10, the Discovery is built in Slovakia, not in the UK. The current U.S. government administration has launched tariffs on cars made outside of America, although the UK has the 10% deal. The Range Rover model line, which is made in the UK, will be subject to those reduced tariffs. But since the Discovery and the Defender are made in the EU, they remain subject to the hefty tariffs. Number 11, all-terrain capability. The Defender is superior. Number 12, the Discovery segment is a crowded one. Even leaving aside the Discovery's in-house rivals, the range of alternative 3-row SUVs available from other manufacturers is very broad. For luxury and family hauling capability, the 3-row Volvo XC90 is a great alternative, and it's received a facelift in the 2025 model year. It's also available as a plug-in hybrid and is significantly more efficient than the Discovery. For similar off-road capability and luxury, the recently overhauled Lexus GX is another strong contender. The Discovery isn't particularly fun to drive for its segment, but 3-row SUVs don't have to be dull. The Acura MDX Type S proves it, being surprisingly engaging on back roads given its significant size. And finally, number 13, the next Discovery might look very different to the current car. For now, the Discovery soldiers on in Land Rover's lineup, mostly unchanged from previous years, although the launch of a sudden crop of special editions might be the hint that the next generation of SUVs is nearing its end of its life. JLR acknowledged that the direction of the next generation Discovery was under discussion as far back as 2023. The brand has not officially announced when it plans to launch the next generation model. Rumors suggest that the upcoming Disco might look quite different from the current generation, with JLR wanting to differentiate it better from the highly popular Defender line. It's also likely to have more electrified options. These rumors are all unconfirmed for now, and JLR already has plenty of big launches coming with the Range Rover Electric and the endlessly controversial Jaguar rebrand. As a result, it might still be a little while until Discovery receives an overhaul. There's your 13 things you should know.
I'm thinking that perhaps part of the reason why they've discontinued the four-cylinder D90 is to drive sales of the Disco, because now it is not possible to get a Defender for less than a Disco.
Ooh, that's a good thought, Harold.
Very good thought. Yeah.
It's now your entry-level Land Rover.
Yeah, and there was talk when they were still proposing the new Defender that it was going to be the entry-level brand and the Disco was going to be the mid-level, but that never really worked out. So now I think it's gone the other way. I think the Defender has become more premium because it's in demand and people are spending money on it. So to drive the Disco, maybe they're getting rid of the cheap Defenders.
And presumably the Discos are more likely to remain the more efficient choice as well. Their Defender is
quote, family
quite a bit
friendly.
wider.
They're family friendly and they do lose value quicker. So they're going to be cheaper in the used market too. So why not start them there?
Yeah, I hope that is the actual logic behind it, because I like that logic.
If it helps the Disco out, then maybe it's not a bad thing.
I think is the best thought I think we've had on the Disco continuing, and we've seen it in quite a while, because it certainly was, certainly here in the US, it was definitely competing with the Defender. The Defender was eating its lunch.
Yeah, and maybe there's some heritage there too, because when the Disco first was introduced in '89, it was billed as the poor man's Range Rover because it was based on the Range Rover Classic. And now maybe the Disco is becoming the poor man's Defender.
Speaking of the Defender, Slash Gear also had another article related, Land Rover Discovery versus Defender, how the two SUVs compare. I'll try to make this quick, but if you're in the market for a comfortable highway cruiser that's very much at home on an off-road terrain, a Discovery or Defender might make sense to you. Both SUVs come equipped with comfort-enhancing luxuries and boast rugged enough character to venture to off-road terrain. They're also based on the same D7 unibody platform, although they have the same engines and share many bits, they can make deciding between them harder. However, the two are different enough to cater to various tastes. The Defender is offered in 3 body styles, the 2-door Defender 90, the 110 with 2 doors and 2 rows, and the Defender 130, an extended wheelbase with 3 rows of seating. Hence, it seats between 5 and 8 occupants depending on body style. The current generation Discovery, meanwhile, is only available in the 3-row guise with space for 7 occupants. Between them, the sleeker Discovery is the one to pick if you're after a daily driver or drive mostly on paved roads, as it offers a smoother, more relaxing, and more refined ride experience than the boxy Defender, which for itself is a lot more suitable for off-roading due to its tougher stance and slightly higher maximum ground clearance of 11.5 inches versus the 11.1 inches for the Discovery. Below, we've compared the Land Rover Discovery and the Defender in terms of price, power output, capability, and features to help make choosing the right model easier. These comparisons are based on 2025 models. I will let you go check out that article if you want to read them, but there's the one thing I was going to point out here was that the base spec Defender 110 and 130 models are priced higher than an entry-level Discovery at $62,000 and $71,000. So
like I said, you can't buy a Defender for less than a Disco anymore.
If you're trying to decide whether to buy a Defender or a Disco, go check that article out. We're going to end on how the Defender became Land Rover's best-selling model. And this is from Autoblog. And there's quite a bit here, which I think is relevant to our interests. So why don't we just go through it and we'll see how the conversation goes. Land Rover now sells more Defenders in a month than it used to sell in a year. By a wide margin, the Defender has become JLR's best-selling model with over 115,000 units sold globally in 2024. In the first 6 months of 2025 alone, another 60,000 found homes around the world, putting it on track to beat the prior year's record. For comparison, the next best-selling JLR models were the Range Rover Sport at almost 80,000 units and the full-size Range Rover at over 76,000 units. Both impressive, yet still trailing the Defender's volume. What's even more remarkable is the sustained sales strength year on year that the new Defender has enjoyed. Product life cycles typically follow a surge after launch and then taper off, but Land Rover's reinvented icon isn't just selling well, it's redefining what sustained automotive success looks like in a modern era. In fact, Defender sales hit an all-time high in their 4th year, the highest in the model's 76-year history, defying the usual midlife slump that most vehicles experience. Despite a few naysayers when the Defender was unveiled in 2019 at the 2019 Frankfurt Motor Show, what Land Rover introduced nearly 6 years ago has proven to be an incredible hit. Traditionalists and purists initially grumbled with the terms like Land Rover Offender, thrown around by those who lamented the departure from the old no-frills formula. Yet time has vindicated Land Rover's bold redesign. The new Defender has become a runaway sales success, winning over both longtime loyalists and a new generation of buyers. Are you in that place, Harold? Have you been won over?
I am not a new generation of buyers, that's for certain.
Okay, all right. Maybe you're a loyalist that's been converted yet?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a capable truck. It's nice. It's just not for me.
And then moving on here, in the car industry, most models enjoy a strong launch and early peak, then see declining sales by year 3 or 4 before a mid-cycle refresh gives a temporary bump, a pattern often visualized as an M-shaped sales curve. Inside this M-shaped, explain Andy Hunt Cook, Global Head of Communications for Defender, our sales curve is actually more like a ski jump. In other words, Defender sales climb early on and then keep climbing. I don't know why he didn't use the hockey stick, but I guess he's European.
Or the guy is Southern and doesn't know what a hockey stick is.
And of course, I'm just very concerned with the ski jump analogy in general, because you have to come back down to the ground.
Good
Yeah,
point.
and usually at a much lower point when you hit.
Land Rover has managed to keep the Defender fresh with every new model, continually improving what works. The strategy is essentially to take the recipe that people really like already and just make it slightly better each year rather than letting the product go stale. Sales data backs this up. Even in its 4th year on sale, the Defender set a new annual sales record building on its already impressive performance. This is unheard of in an industry where year 4 is typically when a vehicle starts losing steam. JLR attributes this to tactical updates and expanded offerings that have kept consumer demand high. The 2-door Defender 90 has attracted buyers who previously drove sports cars. They see the short wheelbase Defender as a fun, characterful alternative, whereas the 3-row Defender 130 is finding favor with multi-child family households, especially in the U.S. This broad appeal has enabled Defender to conquest buyers across the automotive spectrum, while also bringing back Land Rover loyalists who had long awaited a worthy successor to the original Defender. Crucially, the Defender's success hasn't cannibalized its Range Rover siblings. On the contrary, Range Rover sales have remained robust, even growing nearly 9% last year, alongside Defender's rise. In other words, Defender is expanding JLR's total customer pool, not merely shuffling it. At the heart of Defender's success lies an obsessive focus on customer feedback. As Jessica Martin, Global Product Manager for Defender, explained, quote, "We spend so much time assessing what customers say, what they feedback to us. We've got different mechanisms, whether that's through focus groups, specific insight programs, retail feedback, or surveys. We're constantly using that to optimize and move forward," unquote. Rather than waiting 4 or 5 years for a big facelift, the Defender team makes incremental upgrades every year based on real-world input. Quote, "We know customers love what we already do, which is why we're gently iterating it year on year," unquote. This strategy has created an unprecedented loyalty loop. Owners see that Land Rover keeps improving the Defender, giving them little reason to switch to another brand. Land Rover even responded to enthusiast requests by introducing larger accessory white steel wheels to fit models with bigger brake packages, fixing a long-standing annoyance that the previous wheel options posed for some owners. This evergreen product strategy has paid off in loyalty. Defender owners are seeing meaningful improvements each year, more power, more tech, more personalization, without losing the core character they love. The result is that many are sticking with the model, upgrading to newer versions or special editions, rather than drifting to competitors.
I'm glad I don't have to work on new Defenders, because if they're changing them every year, just keeping track of what parts get used on which year is not going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely a nightmare, and explains some of the packaging changes they've made, that certain accessories and features are only available in certain packages now, and that seems to change every year. As a software developer, personally, like I think an iterative approach is excellent and is what's required.
I think it's very smart.
But I also wonder, they're saying, oh, normally a vehicle will slump in the fourth year of sales. This particular vehicle was launched in a pandemic and had a massive wait list that, only cleared like last year or something?
But folks didn't have to buy it even though when it was available.
It may have been launched in a pandemic, but they'd also made sure that people had thirsted for them for 5 years before they released it. Building a lot of pent-up demand. But the first line of this article starts out by saying that Land Rover sells more new Defenders in a month than it used to in a year. I think the extension of that is that they sell more new Defenders in a year than they sold old Defenders, period.
And honestly, maybe part of the launching in a global pandemic and having those supply chain delays and production delays with a very large wait list, maybe that was actually very helpful to force them into the iterative process. Because by the time somebody got the Land Rover they were ordering, it wasn't going to be the Land Rover they had ordered, and they would have had feedback and some improvements. So ultimately, that's better for the end user anyway.
Yeah, there's that. But I think also because of the supply chain issues and the production issues they're having, it made having a Defender that much more exclusive. And now that production is normalized and they don't have these delays, now they're having to manufacture that exclusivity by having all these special editions.
Yeah, and especially some of the Defender ones are just a handful of models. That's more so in the Range Rover line, but still with the Defenders, some of them are just a small count.
They're doing the same thing with the Range Rover too. They're having those small and special editions. But if I may just speak on behalf of Land Rover, my guess is they were...
Please.
Yeah, yes. I suspect that they would never say that, oh, thankfully we had the pandemic because that helped with our strategy. I'm sure they never wanted.
No, I don't think anybody would want that.
But definitely they played that strategy. I'm sure they were not happy about having to buy chips on the market so they could, because that's the vehicle had a lot of computer chips in it, and that stressed them out a lot. Sure,
as in more than any other Land Rover?
Not just necessarily more than any Land Rover, but that's just where modern cars are. They're rolling computers.
It was one of the most computerized vehicles out there, really, not just within Land Rover, but in general. I think it's right up there.
So I hope Land Rover doesn't mind me speaking for them. I'm saying that, hey, the pandemic really wasn't what we wanted. But I think to their credit, they may have used some of that to do, maybe they gave them the reason for this iterative process.
And I don't know that what I said about them, the exclusivity of the Defender that they couldn't build, I don't know that's something they planned, but it certainly did, I think, maybe benefit them in follow-up years. It created more demand, I think, once the production normalized. And I think that since then, they've thought maybe that to drive the exclusivity thing with the special editions.
And they also shows they hit the mark. You have a new generation buying this car that they probably heard of, and it was not something they ever saw. And if they did, it was maybe foreign to them. And they hit the mark. Yeah. They hit the mark here.
People still see legacy Defenders and have to ask what they are. Pretty much anytime you go out and drive in one, you encounter that as a Defender owner.
Yes, it's the time when we tell new Defender owners, please know your history, so that when an old classic Defender waves at you, please wave back.
And at the time, with the release of the new Defender, we had gone through the DC 100 concept issue situation.
Nightmare.
a nightmare. It felt like at the time that Land Rover was behind the times on modernization of an old vehicle. We had already had the new Beetle. We had the new Mini. We had the FJ Cruiser from Toyota that all looked like very modernized versions of classics. But I feel like right now, the other brands are playing catch up. Toyota stopped doing their super modernization of their core vehicles and only now is re-releasing those, similar to the Bronco, the Scout,
which is not made
all
by
of these
International
brands.
Harvester, but then
Right, yes.
But it's still a name that's come back.
the Scout has come back, not
Yes.
the parent company.
But the point here is what Morgan has made it and made it very well is that since they did such a good job of hitting the mark on the Defender, they have set the standard for the models that go, maybe we should bring back an old model that we don't make anymore and we need to update it and make it fresh.
Yeah.
And I have one thing to dispute with you, Morgan.
Yes.
You said seemingly behind the times. Land Rover was knowing, and they knew they were behind the times.
And that was really the British way. If you think about it, every Rover product used their best cutting edge technology was at least 10 years old.
I feel like maybe the Range Rover was the exception there, but they let their engineers run with it in that case. So it was a little bit of a different beast.
Yeah. In some ways, yes, but the individual technologies in the Range Rover, none of them were all that new and cutting edge. I mean, with the possible exception of some of the
about air suspension?
electricity of the air suspension. That in itself, that was maybe 5 years old when that came out. Look to other brands that were doing things like that. But in the overall package in an SUV, Range Rover was definitely leading the pack there. But the individual component technologies, I think was, again, the British way, use what's out there.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And I think having the DC-100 mishap, nightmare, helped because it pushed them back enough that they really had to stop, reinvent everything. It gave them a chance to say, hey, we're discontinuing the original Defender, which actually boosted its sales at the end, regained interest. Then scarcity is a benefit in the sales of certain things. And the global pandemic sort of was involuntary for that, but created it, but also created it in such a way that everybody understood why it was scarce and it wasn't Land Rover's fault.
So you mentioned the DC-100 fiasco and that it created an opportunity to go back and take a better look at what they were doing. And that made me think of what you'd also said earlier about the other brands seeing the Defender and the success of the Defender and changing how they're doing some of their retro stuff. So I'm actually curious if maybe the public reaction to the DC-100 led in part to Toyota dialing back their FJ product, since they do look similar. And that was much of the outcry about the DC-100 was it was the Toyotification of the Defender.
And
I'm wondering if maybe Toyota thought, we don't want to be associated with that either, so let's stop making the FJ. Let's do something different.
And sales certainly for the FJ sort of dropped off at that point. But I also feel like we've got an interesting point in the memory of new buyers. They probably are young enough that they don't really remember the relaunch of the Beetle, the Mini, and a lot of those. And so the most recent big relaunch maybe happens to start with the Defender.
Honestly, I think a lot of the younger buyers that are buying the Defender don't even know there was an old Defender. They don't know it's a relaunch. It's a new product for their, as far as they're concerned.
Especially here in North America.
Oh, absolutely here in North America. That's why nobody or very few people recognize that Range Rovers and Defenders are in the same house of brands.
No, they're not, sir. See, you got it wrong too. They're not in the same house of brands.
They are in the same house of brands. They are not the same brand.
No, they're the same. Right. No, they're two separate houses.
JLR is a house of brands.
Oh, see, now I'm confused. Okay, I thought each model was a house.
It's a family.
Oh, it's a brand.
Oh,
It's a pillar of the house.
See, we were just building up Land Rover, doing a great job on the Defender, and then this
JLR has just done such a great job of totally obfuscating this whole thing that it's very hard to understand this. But in one breath, they'll talk about Defender being a house and Range Rover being a house, but then they also talk about the overarching company being a house of brands, and that these are individual brands within the house. So, yeah, maybe they need to clarify that for us a little more.
Maybe for themselves.
Somebody.
I was trying to end this on a positive, uplifting note that we get into the confusion that is House of Brands.
Good luck with that.
It's inescapable.
On that bombshell, as they used to say on Top Gear, we end by saying, well done, Land Rover, on the Defender. That's the news for July of 2025.
Nobody expects the House of Brands.
Welcome to the CentreSteer podcast. Glenn Parent. Glenn, you were on before. Welcome back.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. You're in Vermont. Is that right?
Yeah, the other end of the state. The end of the state I grew up in.
It only takes 2 hours to go across the whole state, so it's not too far away.
Oh, depending on which direction you're going.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And maybe what version of Land Rover you're in, too.
Yeah, that 2 hours would be in a normal car. Probably double it.
The first time we talked to you, Glenn, was when the CentreSteer prototype was built. You were part of that. And what have you been up to since then?
I'm doing a lot of frame replacement jobs, which is pretty common for these things, and a fair amount of work. And I've just been so buried in work for the last 5 years that I've stopped taking work in, and I'm trying to get stuff caught up that I've had in my dooryard forever.
Sounds like is that a good problem to have?
It is. I'd rather have that than not have anything to do. But if someone needs a bunch of work done and I say, oh, I can't do it for a year, they say, well, just bring it up and leave it. There it sits, and then before you know it, the year's up, but everybody's really good. It works out okay. I've been doing a military job for Rovers North for quite a while, 4 or 5 years, and I'm finally just stopped taking in any other work and trying to get that wrapped up. I'm on the home stretch of that, so that's going pretty good.
Are you like focusing only on series trucks, or are you looking at?
Yeah, pretty much. Unless if one of my buddies with a Defender comes in with a skip or something, I'll squeak them in. But I'm not lining up any more big jobs for a little bit. I got a lot of things on the back burner. You can only do so much in a day. Huh?
That's right. That's right. What about your personal Rover collection? What's that look like these days?
I've been beating around a 73 Series 3 88. That's my trail rig. And the thing just won't die. I pound it unmercifully, and it just seems to like it. And the name is funky, and it does pretty well. And then I have that 58 Series 1 pickup that I brought back from the West Coast, and I drive that. That's my shop truck, a daily driver. For the last 3 years at the British Invasion, I've got first, second, and third in their Rover division. And it's, okay, this is not the nicest Rover here by far, but it's the most Rover type Rover, I guess. It's just a cool rig. You can throw 2x4s in the back and a bag of grain and put your straw hat on and ride into town. And it's way cool. I got a ton of thumbs up with that.
Is that a North American spec truck? Did they bring, I can't remember now. Did they bring Series 1s to the U.S.?
Yeah. This one was in Canada. It was in British Columbia. It's left-hand drive, has a cold air package and everything, and has no paint on it. It's all been stripped down because it was a Shrine Circus truck. And it was
it was a Shrine Circus truck?
Shrine Circus truck, yeah. It's right on the back of it. And I don't know if they loaded it full of clowns or if they used it to haul elephants or whatever they did. There's zero paint, and people just look at that, and it's really cool. And it's got a few dings and dents, but I drive it a lot. I don't take it on a trail much anymore because it's so light in the back. But I did put parabolic springs on it, and that changed my life because it rode like a buckboard before. There was a ton.
Oh, yeah. That makes a big difference. People don't understand that until they experience it.
I put my hand up, Harold, to put parabolics on my Series 3, and it's another world. It's amazing.
Yeah, and the purists will say you got to have the real, but parabolics I'm a big fan. Yeah.
I tell the purists come up, I tell them to bend over, get a good look, and count the rivets, and then I whack them on the back of the head while they're doing it.
Yeah, that's about right. Everybody's a critic.
The Series 1 has a cold weather package. What exactly is that? They give you, some mittens?
They have mittens anyways, but it has a super duper heater with a big pipe coming in from the front, and the heater takes up half of the passenger compartment. I don't know if it was a Klondike thing, but it was a Series 1 North American winter package.
I'd be curious to see some pictures of that, actually, because there were a bunch of
It's hard to figure out what the Canadian spec actually was back then. It's interesting that you've actually got one because very few have survived.
I've never seen another one like it. It's a big box right in front of the shifter.
Yeah.
Got a big tube going out through there, and
Probably does a good job given that there's not a lot of interior volume in a truck cab.
I've never driven it in the winter, and I don't even know if I have the heater core hitched up in it or not. But
That might affect your performance a bit.
it looks cool in there. But
For those who are not familiar, I assume that is heated by the fuel that the vehicle's using, correct?
by the coolant.
By the
Coolant.
Okay, so it's a heat exchange then.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was maybe gasoline or diesel, whatever that is.
Some of them, some rigs years ago had a small engine. I had a Corvair one time, had an engine heater powered by gas underneath the hood. There was this little gasoline, something sounds like a time bomb, but this has coolant going through it.
Gotcha. How long have you owned that Series 1?
6 or 7 years, probably.
Okay. Are you a namer of your trucks? Did you name it?
Well, that's a Silver Bullet, and most of my friends call it the Tin Man.
Nice.
And the other one, Series 3, is Spunky. So I think every Rover I work on has a name. Some of them are odd, but most of them are pretty fitting.
Nice. And do you own any other Land Rovers in your collection?
I own enough pieces to probably make 3 or 4, but no, those are only things I got going right now.
Are you exclusive to the series side of the house?
Pretty much. Usually I have my wife has been driving a P38 for a long time. And then we had a newer Range Rover, but they're just so costly. And I live on a pretty bad dirt road, and the new Range Rovers have a ton of linkage rods and stabilizers and everything clattering around all the time. So there's a lot of maintenance to keep it going. And the engines are not the greatest in the older, early 2000 Range Rover. Although I had a LR3 my daughter drove the past 3 or 4 years, and I had the Jag motor in it, and that thing was bulletproof. That really went well. I finally took that to the boneyard, but it was 230,000 miles, and it had a lot of hot suppers, so that didn't owe me anything.
Nice. If you have your series trucks and you didn't drive the series in the wintertime, what do you drive in the winter?
Chevy truck.
Ah, okay. Now we got the truth comes out.
I live up on top of a mountain, and it's pretty. You got to have 4-wheel drives. My wife had a CRV, so I don't have to work on that at all.
What kind of adventures have you gotten into? I know that you're part of the Vermont Rover Club and also the Weenie Roast. Can you tell us more about the Weenie Roast?
The Weenie Roast is a big deal. 4 or 5 years ago, we've had 4 of them. Dave Sweetapple and I called him up. I said, hey, it's been a long, cold winter. What do you think about having a Weenie Roast in the spring to get all our friends together and start the summer and everything? He said, yeah, let's do that. So he hooked us up with about 1 billion people because he knew everybody that had Rover gear oil in their blood. And we got a bunch of people together, and the first year was pretty cool. We had a lot of people. We had 60 or 70 rigs, and it was muddy, and we pulled a lot of people out. And I have some property in Grafton, which has a couple big fields. So we had a nice viewing area. We filled the field right up with Rovers and a ton of series trucks. I think we had probably 80% series trucks and rest Defenders and a few Discos in there. I had a lot of people there, and we had some really big, gnarly trails up behind my house, and everybody got stuck and broke stuff. So it was a great time. As years go on, we added a swap meet. We had Mike Bonaducci brought down a bunch of stuff. He's a pretty big name around here. And other people would bring stuff and open up the tailgate and swap parts. So that kind of added to it.
So when you say it got big, like what kind of numbers are we talking about here?
We averaged 60 to 80 vehicles, and every vehicle has.
That's impressive.
And a lot of people without Rovers came. We made them park off in a different field, but
as you should.
Yeah, we have a power line that's about 5 miles from my place, so we always do a power line run, which is really good because people don't bash up their rigs. A lot of people, you don't always want to go out and see how stuck you can get. And the power line is good. You get some nice views. And there's a few places off the power line where you can sashay around a little bit and get into some rocks and stuff. So it's pretty good. We have returned people every year, so must be doing something right.
And it's been taking place in the same place for the 5 years, that behind your house. Yep. Is it centered at your house? Is that
in Grafton? We've got 12 acres of land in Grafton with just we put a small little camp on there, and then we have a bunch of tents, and usually have a bonfire. And this year was super muddy. Every year we move it forward a couple of weeks to try to get away from some of the mud, and this year was just the worst. And I just barely got it squared away this past week with all the ruts and everything. But we're back in pretty good shape.
It's more of an informal gathering then. I assume it's not like a full-on MAR event where you're registering and you have a Saturday dinner and
we have a Friday dinner at the tavern, which usually has 20 or 30 people of the people that are working behind the scenes. It's not really official. I call up everybody I know and everybody tells everybody else, and it's just word of mouth type thing. And we don't charge a thing. We ask for donations to help us with the stuff. I usually spend more on porta potties and grading the driveway than we bring in, but it's a lot of fun. It's pretty good.
Is the fact that you have porta potties is a good sign. That's good.
Yeah, that's key to having a successful event.
I completely agree. You don't want to have a bunch of people just hanging out in the woods.
Yeah, and everybody brings food and beer and soda and water, and there's a raft of food. And I've got a couple of good guys. Mike Kinney and John Valorant are always flipping hot dogs and helping out a lot.
Hence the name Weenie Roast, right?
Weenie Roast, yeah. It's just an informal, good hangout time. The swap meet has added a lot to it. That makes it pretty cool.
And you generally invite folks to attend? Is that, if they hear about it, they can show up?
Anybody that wants to show up, we blab it around for 2 or 3 months. It's always, I guess our dates now are always the weekend after Mother's Day.
Okay.
And you could come Friday night and camp. We have places to camp, and the local places offer a deal on rooms and stuff. And Saturday is a main event, and then people fizzle out on Sunday. We don't get any complaints.
That sounds like a fantastic event. Just a nice gathering of folks. I assume you get all kinds of Rovers then. Obviously, sounds like you bring your Series 1.
I bring my Series 1, I bring Spunky, and everybody brings something. And it doesn't matter. We had some new defenders there this year. Sometimes we get the people from the driving school. They'll bring up a couple of rigs. It's pretty cool.
What do you think of the new Defender?
I'm pretty old school, and I like that if my vehicle dies in the woods, I'm going to be able to probably get it running unless that rod comes out the side or something. But the newer ones are pretty electrical. I took the guys from the driving school on a trail a few weeks ago, and my 88 walked right through, and the ground clearance on the front of a new Defender wasn't the same as the 88, because the 88 there's nothing in front of the wheel pretty much, so you can climb straight up. And this thing got hung up. We got it through there, but they're okay. It's a Rover.
If someone gave you one, you'd then drive it, right?
I might sell it and buy a couple of old Defenders or something.
There we go. There we go. I like it.
You could let that be your winter beater or something.
Yeah, that would be my winter beater. $100,000.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, what you should get yourself is a Defender Octa. There, and then there's bonker speed.
They're not good in winter because there's too much torque there.
Yeah, I agree.
We drove that LR3 in the winter, and that thing was pretty good with the traction control and all the other stuff. We just couldn't get it stuck, and it had good heat, and it's
comfortable. You can have a conversation. Yeah, I'm a recent convert to the LR3.
I think my favorite Land Rover for not having to work on and dependability would be a 2006 LR3 with a Jag motor.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's exactly what I have.
Yeah, that's perfect. I would actually look at another one of those if I could find one.
Although I did just have to replace the rear control arms. But there you go. Things happen.
I've done that, wheel bearings and just about everything. Air suspension, you had to do a little voodoo dance out there to get it to work. But there was a trick, and you could get it to pump up. And my daughter figured out.
Can't be worse than the air suspension on the P38s.
I had P38, and the air suspension worked right up until the day I got rid of it, which was...
When it's working, it's great. It's a pain when they aren't working right.
Well, it's a really nice thing. My wife's fairly short, and she could pull up the garage, push the button, vehicle comes down, up. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a number of clients that had it for that very reason, for the wives to get in and out.
Yeah. And then you're going off-road, you push the button, it comes up a little bit. One wheel slips, the other grabs. Yeah.
I actually had the tool to reprogram those heights so that I could make it go even a little bit higher and a little bit lower in the highway mode if you wanted.
Yeah, having the gap tool is critical.
And you can play around with the sensors a little bit too. I think they make extenders for them so you can go up or down.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, but they're good rigs. I like the LR3s.
The Weenie Roast started about 5 years ago, and did that come out of the Vermont Rover Club? Is that part of the club activities?
Yeah, it's the main deal of the Vermont Rover Club. And Dave and I started the Vermont Rover Club, which was very informal. It's just we had 4 or 5 people that would meet up, once a month to go for a ride, and we've expanded it. And then we had some T-shirts, and then we went to the state and filed the name and all the other hubbub. We don't have insurance is a bit of a problem because for our events we have the waiver, have to sign a waiver and stuff. But sooner or later, that's not going to be the way to go.
Do you have like club officers and official events, or is it more very informal?
Very informal. I'm pretty much the only guy now, except for our regulars, and there's no designation of duties. We show up and somebody grabs a chainsaw and somebody else will grab a shovel, and we'll just do what we got to do and clean up when we're all done. Or just good. There's probably 6 or 8 of us, pretty hardcore Rover Club scene.
Do you have other events, official events anyways, besides the Weenie Roast?
No, we throw together some trail rides once in a while. But the thing with trail rides is if you have 4 or 5 people, that makes it about the best fun trail ride. If you have 20 or 30 people, it turns into a bit of a hassle. So the best rides we've had are probably 4 people. You go out, you get stuck a little bit, you winch out. If you got 20 rigs, every quarter mile you're stopping, everybody's jumping out, taking a bunch of pictures. It's a lot of fun, but
too many trucks.
Too many trucks.
And then if you get one stuck, usually many of them get stuck.
Yeah.
Really have to start dividing up into groups when you get that many.
Yeah. We tried to split up, and what we did before is Dave would take a bunch of people out on the gnarly trails at the Weenie Roast, and I would take a bunch of people out on the little more soft trails. And that worked out pretty good. If you got 15 rigs, it's probably pretty nice. And a lot of people didn't go on the trail ride, so we're okay.
And a lot of those trails, or at least some of them, are Class 4 roads.
And the Class 4 roads in Vermont open officially on May 15th. So by being the week after Mother's Day, we're good with getting on a class because we don't want to make anybody mad because we're running things up stuff.
For those who are unfamiliar, what is a Class 4 road?
Well, Class 4 road is it's basically an old dirt road that's not maintained by the town. They don't plow it in the winter. And most of the Class 4s that aren't plowed turn into snowmobile trails. You don't want to be driving your Rover out on a snowmobile trail. They'll be gunning for you.
Right.
Yeah, and there's lots of old Class 4 roads that go from one town to another through the woods. And, it's okay to drive on them. And we always pick up all the bottles and cans we find around and try not to chaw things up too bad. The Rover guys are different than the Jeep guys who tear things up, and we'll see how much mud we can go through. Everybody likes mud, but you don't have to tear the land up.
No, I think you like mud. Once you do the mud, you're like, okay, I've done that.
Yeah, we went, one of my buddies this weekend, we went to New Hampshire because we try to go to, some of the guys live in the southern part, some of the guys in the northern part. So guys that are in our club will say, hey, come up to my house this weekend. So we went to New Hampshire this weekend, found some nice places, a lot of water, still water, 3 feet deep. So you make the wave out in front of you. And it was really cool. Didn't break any, didn't die in the middle of the pond.
Yeah, that's always a plus.
It sure is. Yeah.
How long has the Vermont Rover Club been around?
We've been around for 5 years, I think.
Oh, so about the same time as the Weenie Roast. Okay.
We put the Rover Club together, and the Weenie Roast was our first real event.
Did that come out of a different club? Had there been a previous club that it came out of?
No, just not. I think there was something in Vermont years ago, but nothing that we were all had anything to do with. And the Vermont Rover Club name wasn't being used by anybody.
Okay. And how does that relate to the Vermont Rovers? I guess that's what I was trying to get to. Is there a connection with Vermont Rovers?
Dave Sweetapple had I don't know if you really call it a company or a group called Vermont Rovers. And he would do T-shirts and talk to a bunch of people. And he owned that name, Vermont Rovers. So the Vermont Rover Club is a total separate thing. We were both involved with Vermont Rover Club, but I wasn't involved with Vermont Rovers.
He was just like everywhere on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that with the Vermont Rovers.
Knew so many people with Roveritis that it was all, it was so cool. You couldn't talk to anybody. And there weren't many people that didn't like him. He might have crossed a couple of people, but he was a real personable guy.
So tell us more about Dave. He passed away, I think, last year, if I remember correctly. And
in a couple of weeks, I think, first week of August. And that was pretty sudden. It was a real shock to me. I figured I'd be keeling over long before he did. And I got the call and it was like, I couldn't believe it. I still don't believe it. I still expect him to poke around a corner to send me a text or something. I talked to him every day. He was my best friend. And it was like, man, this really sucks. So I still get rattled by it.
Sorry.
But he was cool too. If you look up cool in the dictionary, there's a picture of Dave Sweetapple. He was just the coolest guy that I've ever met.
What kind of trucks did he drive?
He had a Series 3. He drove that most of the time. And then later on, he had a 130 that he got in Belgium or someplace overseas, left-hand drive. He brought that back, and he had an LR4. And he had another one, I think it was like maybe a 60, early 2A, I think, that he was working on in his shop. Or 109 he was restoring. He had that one restored, but he never finishes. That's in pieces there. So,
Do you know how he got to the Land Rover disease? How he got the bug?
he was from Newfoundland, and I think there were a few up there. And then he moved down here to go to school or something. He went back up there and bought one, and then he started the Vermont Rovers, and he drove his thing all the time. He just liked it. He was a real enthusiast. He really into the Rovers.
That was his daily. He had I take it a series something as his daily driver.
Series 3 was daily driver, and in the end, the LR4 was his daily driver.
Sure, exactly.
Yep.
Sorry for your loss, and thanks for letting us know about Dave. Did he take any adventures that he did, or did he just basically stay around the Vermont area?
They were planning a big thing to Newfoundland, and that didn't happen before he left. But he would always go off. He'd call me up and say, "Hey, I got a guy down in Pennsylvania that's got a series truck that I want to buy." Truck and trailer down there. So we would pick up Sean and go on a little adventure like that and stuff like that. We'd be driving we drove by a guy's place down near Brattle one time. There's an old Land Rover sitting out back. And I said, let's stop and talk to the guy. And he said, what do you mean? You can't just go up and bang on the door. I said, sure. Go up and bang on the door. And the guy looked at you for a minute, but then opened right up and said he made some stainless steel door tops, which were really cool. And that was 20 years ago or something. And people, if you see a Land Rover in somebody's dooryard, as soon as they know you're not a felon, they're going to chatter about it.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, it's when people walk up and if they call it a Jeep, I run them off. But if they use Rover terminology, and like one guy drove, so I was driving by, I saw you had a seat box out in the driveway. Okay, you're a Rover guy, so let's talk.
People say that to me. I went to the post office a couple of days ago. There's one and a middle-aged lady we could tell she was from New York or something like that. And she says, "Oh, nice Jeep." And I looked at her and I said, "You didn't just call that a Jeep, did you?" And I rolled my eyes and she says, "What is it?" I says, "Land Rover." And you can do it in sport and fun, and it's all good. But the eye roll is what really did.
What I've been getting lately is people will see my Defender and they go, "Oh, it's a really nice truck." And I go, "Oh, do you know what it is?" And they're like, "It's a Land Cruiser." I'm like, "Oh no."
Yeah, people throw Land Cruiser around sometimes, or they'll look at your rig and say, "That's made by Toyota, right?" No.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
But you educate them.
Exactly. It's an opportunity to educate them and let them know. Yeah. I was in traffic recently and a guy in the traffic stopped. It was on the Parkway, Harold, and stopped. And the guy's like, "Hey, nice truck." And I was like, "Oh, do you know what it is?" He goes, "Yeah, that was the Land Cruiser." "Oh, okay, great."
But there's nothing like cruising down the road and you meet another old series and both thumbs come out and go up in the air. Yeah, there you go.
Come on, sir. That's not a real series truck driver because you can't take both hands off the wheel. Come on.
You really shouldn't even take one hand off the wheel.
That's true.
The right direction, it gives you about a 2-second delay before you have to fight it.
Fair. As long as your steering linkage is all in good nick.
Yeah.
And there's a 50-50 chance that, the Land Rover's going to veer in different directions.
Yeah. With road crown, you're usually in pretty good shape. You're headed.
That's true. Around here with a dirt road and road crown, yeah, you're pretty good.
Yeah, you're usually.
Whether you avoid the ditch or not.
Yeah. And the chances of seeing another Rover when you go out for a ride are fairly slim anyways.
True, especially a series truck.
Seems to be a lot of Defenders around. A lot of people with the newer Defenders, or a lot of Defenders with the Corvette engines in them and stuff like that, which is cool if it's what you like, but I like the little 4-cylinder smokers.
They go a little too fast, I think, for what they were originally designed for.
It's still a square box with marginal brakes and steering, so yeah.
Exactly. Yes, you've made my point, yes.
And there's only about 1 million sharp edges if you're ever getting a wreck. It's like squareness everywhere inside them.
Yep. Metal dash for that. That's why they eventually went to the padded dash, but lightly padded. I think they put a piece of paper over it and called it a padded dash.
Yeah, it's not padding, but it is a little bit.
What became of Dave's collection of trucks?
I think they're all still in storage somewhere. I think Robin is taking care of things, but it's a big shock for everybody. So it's kind of wait till the time's right to really do stuff. And the trucks are still around, so I don't know what will happen.
Yeah, it was definitely quite the shock to me. Like, I'm at the other end of the state, but I would talk to him definitely every year at the British invasion. But my parents live in Brattleboro and would stop and talk to him every time they saw him at the grocery store. There was his Series 3. So
struck up a conversation with anybody. If they mentioned your Rover, if you pulled in somewhere and somebody said, "Hey, nice Rover," and he would just start a conversation and he'd leave with a new friend, Or so he would say, people would say, "Oh, Glenn Parrott," and he would say, "Oh yeah, we're buddies." So Yeah, it's a small world sometimes when it comes to Rover guys. Everybody knows everybody, at least around here.
Most
And,
certainly.
I sure miss Dave. I know that. And the enthusiasm he brought to Rover and all the things that we have with our Rover things are people that Dave brought together. And that's like really cool. Even if he's not there, I know he's smiling from somewhere.
Yeah, he really helped bring so many people together.
Yeah, like from all over the place. Yeah, he knew a lot of people. And he was a rock star, but he downplayed that and never made a big deal of it. He said, "Well, I can't do this month. I'm going to be in Germany at a concert or something like that." And one of the coolest things that I remember was he was in Germany and he sent me some pictures. He's wearing my GP Rover Works T-shirt at his concert, and that is so cool.
So he was a musician?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a musician. He was in a band called Sweetapple, and then he had a band called Witch and a couple other bands. And if you Google his stuff, he's really world famous musician. And with a million Rover people being sad at his passing, he had an equal amount of rock people. He was a bass guitar player.
We'll definitely look that up. We'll have a link in the show notes to whatever we find for his band. I was unaware he was in a band.
Yeah. He was a big deal.
Amazing. Yeah, so the amazing thing was that just talking to him, you would never know.
He never
was so cool.
Always modest about that. We're going to have a little memorial thing for him in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure what we're going to do. Maybe a small trail ride, or there's a favorite place behind my house is a wicked view. You can see, I don't know how many states you can see, but he always used to go up there. So I'm going to put a little bench up there in a certain spot and hack out a little spot. It'd be cool.
Oh, that's very nice. That sounds very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morgan, you should go.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grafton is a beautiful town and the views are impeccable from that area.
I think that Glenn and company would let you show up in a non-Rover.
You got to stay in the back of the pack, but yeah. You have two Rovers near Jim's, eh? You still got those sitting there?
I do. Yeah. It's 1.5, a new rolling chassis for the old one, quote unquote new. It's been a while. Same
condition they were 10 years ago when I saw them?
Sadly, yes. Yeah. The last 5 years have not been good for my Rover time. Great for podcast time, but not for actual work time.
In line.
It was to our benefit.
Yeah.
I think that's largely because to do the podcast, he doesn't have to drive 2 hours and then 2 hours home again after.
It's just other things, getting older.
Oh, don't start there.
Stuff like that.
Dude.
Yeah, I don't want to turn this into the old man podcast, please.
I'm the young man of the podcast.
Yeah, you're the kid.
Yeah, that's why Harold doesn't want me to start on getting old.
Yes.
But this older thing in Rovers, if you're ever thinking about doing it, you might as well just do it, because before you know it, you won't be doing it.
You are not wrong.
Sadly true.
Make time to do it and enjoy it while you can.
How many people are planning to go on this, I guess, tribute run for Dave?
I haven't blabbed it around too much yet, so probably, it could be 100 people, or there could be 10 people. And if there was only 10 people, it would be just fine with me. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but just to get the key players together and say a few words. And when we had the Weenie Roast, I said a few words and I choked up and was like, geez, this is pretty bad. But as time goes on, you remember the good stuff and don't dwell on how much it sucks, and use his link and some of his little sayings as much as possible to keep him fresh.
Yeah.
They say grief comes and goes and comes in waves and comes in different ways too.
Yeah, this is never going to be easier, but I don't know. It doesn't have to get any harder, I guess.
Is this like an open invitation for anybody that hears about this tribute run?
Yeah, if anybody was a friend of Dave's and wants to be involved, they can figure out how to get a hold of me.
There you go. There's the invitation. If you can get a hold of Glenn, then you can join the tribute run.
It's like the A-Team. If you want this and you can figure out how to find him.
If you want it bad enough, you can find me. You can Google me. You can GP Rover Works or anything, and we'll hook you up. But I'm not looking to make it into a commercial thing. But I understand. People deal with grief in different ways, and if going to a thing for Dave helps anybody out, I'm sure.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, that's what Rovers do. That brings people together, common interests.
Such a different variety of people when you have a Rover gathering. When we have the Weenie Roast, there's doctors, lawyers, mechanics, farmers,
IT people.
Every walk of life.
Recovering IT people.
Speaking of the British invasion, have you attended the British invasion? We've only ever heard about it from Morgan, so we went to another perspective.
I go every year for the last 10, 15 years, probably I've gone. I went with Mr. Macri with all his stuff for quite a while. And then Silver Bullet, I got a bunch of awards the past couple of years. So yeah, I go all the time. This year, I've got a couple of old Triumph motorcycles. I've got two 1970 Bonnevilles. And one I've had for, my father bought it new. I've had it for 35 years. And this past year, 2 years ago, a guy called me up. He knew my wife from the butcher shop. And he said, I've got an old motorcycle that I want to sell you. And I said, sheesh, I come home with another motorcycle, my wife's going to go into orbit. I said, what do you got? And he said, I had a 1970 Bonneville. I bought it brand new. It's been sitting in my barn for 20 years. I want you to have it. What do you want for it? He said, I'll take $200 for it. And I said, oh, crap. Okay, I'll give you $200 for it. In the event that I don't do anything with it and I sell it, I'll call you up and we'll split the money. So I've got two. And back in those days, the 70 Bonnevilles were all the same color. They were all maroon. And then the 69 Bonnevilles were all blue or green. So I got these two motorcycles that are exact same color, same stripes, both 100% complete, both one owner before me. I was thinking about putting them in the back of the Silver Bullet and having them in the show as part of my mayor. But I don't know if they'll let me do that or not.
Oh, you should definitely try that.
That's way cool. And one of them, mine
Why would they stop you?
Well,
You're showing up in a British truck with British bikes in it.
Yeah, but they have a separate section for British motors.
Yeah,
Maybe they
might force unloading them and moving them over to the Triumph motorcycles.
Only if you enter the motorcycles. If they're just cargo in the Land Rover,
Nothing they could do.
Maybe
Yeah.
a tarp over them until they act showtime, and then woof.
Yeah, they just won't be able to win awards themselves, but that might help bump Silver Bullet.
they would
up
push the
into
truck over the
first place
top.
every time.
Could put me up on the podium. I picked up a Vietnam era military trailer that I fixed up, and I could put one in there and one in the back of the truck, and that would be cool too. So I'm pondering over something.
So to get on the podium at the Invasion, is that a juried award or is this voted on by the participants?
There's both.
Yeah, it's people's choice, unless you're doing a concourse thing or something.
Yeah, and you've won the
so they have
People's
both.
Choice or you've won the concourse?
I won the people's choice. I would never stand a chance in a concourse because I'm.
Yeah, Jim wins concourse with his Rovers, but I don't know if any other Rover has won concourse.
I don't know. I don't know if has he ever won the concourse in non-Rover department or just the Rover.
Probably only the Rover
Probably, but
class. Yeah.
all his vehicles put on such a show in themselves with the CentreSteer and all these other cool ones. It's just something cool to look at.
He's had the fortune to be able to show them as special show vehicles, even on non-mark years.
Yeah, they're their own little group of Rovers. They've never been off on the trails, so the cars.
Yeah, at the Jubilee, he let me sit in the CentreSteer, but I had to take my shoes off.
I was hanging around there with Rovers North guys. Yeah, they're cool rigs.
It's a fun event, but so I encourage you to bring the Bonnevilles.
I probably will because they're just sitting in my barn, and it was one of my spare time projects, like your Rovers. They just are on the back burner, and you don't get around to do it until you get the urge, and then that should make it happen.
What's the future for you, Glenn, and the clubs and maybe other events coming up? Or are you planning to do any additional, expand any events outside of maybe Vermont?
We always go to Valoran's Maine Misfits and Rover Bits. That's in Maine. And that's a cool thing. And Dave was pretty involved with that. So that's kind of Vermont Rover Club being involved. All our guys will go up there. And then we usually get a bunch of people, we caravan up to the British Invasion. And then usually a bunch of us caravan down to Don Fly's Metal Dash weekend. And that's usually the weekend after the British Invasion. But I don't know I heard something they were going to change the date, but I'm not sure. That's always pretty good. And I don't know. It's so hard to get all the people together because you can say, okay, let's make a date and do all this, and I can't, my grandmother's coming there from out of town, or my kid's graduating, or there's always stuff going on. And in the end, Dave and we would say, okay, let's pick a date that works for you and me, and whoever can make it good. And if you can't, we're very sorry, but you have to get something going. And if you try to cater to everybody, you won't get anything done.
That is true, sir.
But as for me, I don't know. I'd like to get all these vehicles done and probably do a little fishing and work on my own stuff. I've got enough projects to carry me into next century, probably. So.
Is there any project for you personally that is calling to you that's sitting there and you really want to get to? For you, not any customers, but you.
The motorcycles, getting both the Bonnevilles running and going for a ride with my son would be pretty cool. Eventually, I'd like to hand down the one that I got from my father to him. They're right-hand shifter, so if you drive a motorcycle, most of the time, the shifter's on the wrong side. And if you hop on that, you're laying some rubber down by stomping down on the brake when you're trying to shift down, or it's trying to...
Oops.
Nice.
Yeah, but if you drive, I've got my daily bike is 2002 Triumph 900, the later one, and that's a triple, and that really cranks. And but the Bonneville, you can look at the Bonneville, it will almost stand up by itself. They're so perfectly balanced, really light. And this other thing is like a tank, man. Your ankles get all Popeye stubby when you're done riding this thing because they're pretty tough. But yeah, I'd like to get the Triumphs going now. I bought an Airstream van. For 10 years, Airstream made a motorhome that they put on a Ford chassis. And I just bought one of those, and I'd like to get that cherried up. I pulled transmission out of it over the past couple of days, and man, this is awful.
Do you attend other Rover events like MAR, the Oviedo birthday party?
I went to the 75th with Rovers North, but I don't do too much, only in our little circle of stuff. I got quite a bit of stuff going on here with wife, kids, dogs. I got one girl in college in Florida, and we go down there and visit her once in a while. So a free weekend, and we have a little place on Lake Champlain, and we don't hardly ever get up there because I got so much stuff.
Nice.
And it's hard to take a weekend off or a full week to go somewhere on a Rover thing.
And this year we've only had a couple of nice weekends.
We've had 29 weekends of rain in a row so far.
It's been really crazy.
Rained every weekend, but it's like, what are you going to do?
It's the way it is. Yeah, it's same thing here in Western Pennsylvania. See, this week it's, I think, rained almost every day as we're recording this.
It's raining right now, as a matter of fact.
Oh, is it? I'm down in the podcast bunker. I can't tell. So.
I can't see it, but I can hear the thunder.
We've been in the 90s and humid. Been terrible, but in my little garage at home, I've got air conditioner to keep the place closed right up, so it's pretty good. I rented another shop across town too, in a horse farm. I've got 2 bays in the garage, so where I do the big projects. With horses around stuff, I can't really paint, so I bring the panels over to my house, paint those, and then take them back. But that's a pretty cool spot. And one of my buddies told me one time, says the only bad thing about working at home is you don't work, and it's true. You're either out chasing a dog or the phone rings but if you have to go somewhere and work, you get a lot more done. So I like doing that. That's a good place.
Glenn, thanks very much for coming back on the podcast, giving us an update on where you are in the Rover world and telling us about the Weenie Roast and Vermont Rover Club. We really appreciate you coming back on, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you guys ever want to get together on any of these things, just look me up and I'll fix you up. Or if you want to go to Dave's thing in a few weeks, you know how to get hold of me.
Yes, I do. And I will. I've been trying to get to the Weenie Roasts the last couple of years. I missed the first 2, just had no idea it was happening.
Are you allowed to attend as a non-Rover functioning person, Morgan?
I have to park in the back 40, but
That's right. You got to park in the other field.
Yeah, that's okay. We don't discriminate against anybody. If you got the fever, you got the fever. It doesn't matter if you're actually driving one or. And a lot of people come by themselves, so there's always room to ride shotgun with somebody. So
and I always have spare parts to contribute to the swap meet.
There you go. Yeah, you should get one of those things going sometime.
For sure.
You heard the man, Morgan. You heard the man.
I know, and he stood me right up there and said it's been 10 years since he saw my Rover, and accurate.
Yeah, give me a call if you get stuck. You can probably. It's surprising as these things sit around for so long, and it's really not that tough to get them going sometimes. Dump a little gas down the carburetor, fill them up with fluids, and then just start fixing as you drive.
For sure. I've got a new galvanized chassis sitting next to mine. So that's the first step, because otherwise, like you said, you've been doing all frame swaps. That's thicker around here.
It's hard to do a quick frame swap when you end up doing all the brake lines and all the brakes, and it turns into quite a chore. But they did at the first Vermont Overland thing that Peter Vollers had, they put a frame under a rig in a weekend in a guy's field. And that
I was there for that one. I helped hang the fuel tank. Dixon, were you at that one?
Don't think so.
Okay.
I think it was in Westminster or
it was Rockingham, maybe.
Yeah. I met a lot of people on that. I met a bunch of guys. It was really cool. So you could get a bunch of people to take pity on you, and we could probably throw a frame under your rig in a weekend. And
it's true. If I do a Land Rover racing event, throw one of those, and lots of helping hands to just swap it over.
Yeah, everybody picks a project, and off you go.
Morgan, you've said it on the podcast now. It's been recorded. You got to have a Rover raising.
That's right. Yeah,
All it takes is a barbecue and a couple cases of beer, and you'll have people there, and your Rover will be done.
That's right. I wouldn't get my hopes up too much. You're going to have to.
More done than it is now, and that's progress.
Morgan, I'll even
right.
donate a case of beer to the cause.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks again very much, Glenn. We appreciate you coming on again. Sometimes it takes us 2 or 3 times to wrap up, and this was a nice conversation.
Okay, good. I'm glad you guys hooked me up here, and nice to hang out with you guys for an hour or so, and we'll see you on the trail maybe, huh?
We hope you enjoyed show number 148. Thanks to our guest this month, Glenn Parent. Keep your ear to the ground for the Weenie Roast. And there's a link to Dave Sweetapple's obituary and a few of his songs in the show notes for this episode.
This is actually pretty close to a posthumous guest interview, given the amount of Dave Sweetapple content we got from Glenn.
Very true. We can let Dave live on through his music.
And also thanks to Harold, Morgan, and Dixon. Thanks for coming on to the program, as always, helping out, doing the things that you do.
$10 is $10.
Thanks for having me to get my Land Rover fix when I'm not actually able to wrench on mine.
We got you support, sir. You got help
Whose
now.
fault is
You
that,
did.
Morgan?
Mine, definitely.
Thanks to the power of the podcast, we now have gotten you help to get your Rover ready.
Yes.
It's been great to be here. For those, again, as a final reminder, go bug your club people for a copy of the Anarch newsletter that will list out all of these events and how to get more information with them.
And also thanks to the One True PAX for continued production support. We do appreciate it, PAX. And now it's time for a Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, British Car Day, International Car Day, Car Show report. Harold, you were not able to make it, but so this is my report for Harold. How's that?
Okay.
I would have liked to attend
I
as
think
well,
there's
but
perhaps some listeners more than just me who might care.
So the weather was hot, but it wasn't like oppressively hot. It did not rain, which was wonderful. There was no rain at all. It was a nice overcast at times. We were parked where we normally are, Harold, but because one of the bridges out, I think the Panther Hollow Bridge was out, that part of the race course, they converted to a hill climb. So we did not get as much of the racing. They did have a race, but it didn't take place near where.
They did a hill climb.
Yeah, they did a hill climb. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
I
there
missed
was
that. That would have been neat to see.
It was. There were a couple of the cars came up, and I think they were trying to drift at the top of the hills. They came up to that hairpin turn.
As opposed to drifting going down it normally.
We had an excellent turnout of Land Rovers. The count was, we had 2 series trucks. We had 5 classic Defenders, 3 110s, 1 NAS 90, 1 Wolf showed up. We had 4 new Defenders. They were all 110s. There was an LR4. There were 2 D2s, and there were 2 Range Rovers. And most important, there was a functioning Freelander. Yes, it was a Freelander G4 edition, and it even took first place in its class.
That's the one that was there a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, he makes it out, I think, every
Because
year's
it's
couple.
the functioning Freelander in Western PA.
And he does, in fact, drive it a few times a week, he told me. I talked to him, and he
Wow.
says he drives it a few times a week.
He likes to live life on the
I
edge.
think he does. I think he does.
doing important things.
It absolutely. And like showing up at the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix. And Scottish Bob brought out not only did he bring his new Defender, but he also brought his rebuilt Escort, which was really cool. And our fellow Land Rover owners, Jay and Chris, they also have a Jag E-Type that they brought out, and that was nice. I'll have pictures of all this on FPLRG's website. By the time this comes out, those pictures should be up, and we'll have a link to them in the show notes. And the most interesting non-Land Rover there was a Porsche Carrera that had a rooftop tent.
Very nice.
And it was plated in Florida and had the rooftop tent open and deployed. It was novel to see.
That's often good for points in the bogus judging that they do for the trophies.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all selected by the participants, or it's not a points system. And one negative thing that happened was I deployed the awning. I put the awning onto the Defender, and the zipper broke. Had to bungee the whole thing up so that it didn't fly open on the return home trip.
You can drive with that thing fully deployed.
That's right.
Yeah, you got to pick your route based on the wind. You don't want to be tacking against the wind.
I just have to worry about the George Westinghouse Bridge because it's high up, and I always get buffeted by wind going through that valley.
Oof, yeah.
So it was an excellent Vintage Grand Prix. Had a good time, hung out, got to see the usual people. And we had a nice time. So that was the Vintage Grand Prix this year. If listeners ever want to make it out, it's basically a nice big car show, and lots of cars show up in all makes, all models. They have an international show. They have a domestic show. It's always a nice time.
I think the overall car count for the entire show is something like 3,000 cars this year, something like that. The British car show that we are a part of is a smaller subset. It's the show within the show, and that's probably only a couple hundred, I think.
That's just in the MGs, isn't it? There's a lot of MGs show up, all sorts and sizes.
And it's hosted by the Triumph
MG
Club,
Triumph.
so I imagine there's a ton of Triumphs. Yeah, there's more MGs than there should be, put it that way. But
There was one Sunbeam. It won its class.
when there's one, it's pretty much guaranteed.
We post a new podcast at the end of every month. Our website at CentreSteer.com has all our shows that you can listen to, and show notes with links to the stories we discussed in today's podcast, including Dave Sweetapple, a link to his music. You can directly support the podcast at patreon.com/CentreSteer. You can buy us a t-shirt, a sticker, or even buy us a tea. Visit our website for all of those details. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover.
On behalf of the entire crew here at the CentreSteer podcast, I'd like to thank you all for listening today. We know you have a choice when it comes to your podcasting content, and we do appreciate your choosing us. Please take a moment to look around you for any personal items you may be leaving behind, especially in the overhead bins. Remember that some items may have shifted during the show. Please be careful while you roast your weenies, and you may now resume your important things.
Nobody expects the House of Brands